In the vast, whispering expanse of the Montana sky, where the wind carved stories into the endless grasslands, Elias Thorne gripped the reins of his old mare, Thunder, as if they were the last tether to his unraveling world. It was dusk on a day that had started like any other, chasing strays across the barbed wire fences of his failing ranch, but ended with the kind of fracture that no man walks away from unchanged. Elias, broad-shouldered and weathered at 45, had built this life with calloused hands and unyielding hope. His wife, Clara, had been the light in it all, her laughter echoing through the barn like birdsong after rain. But 3 years ago, a sudden fever had stolen her, leaving Elias with a daughter to raise alone and a heart stitched shut against the world. That evening, as the sun bled orange across the horizon, Elias spotted her, a lone figure stumbling along the dusty road that bordered his property. She was a stranger, her clothes torn and muddied, clutching a worn satchel like a lifeline. Her name, she later gasped, was Lena, a traveler from the city who'd hitched a ride only to be abandoned by a trucker when her money ran dry. Thunder nickered uneasily as Elias dismounted, his boots crunching the gravel. "You lost?" he called, his voice rough as the sagebrush. Lena looked up, her dark eyes wide with exhaustion and something deeper, fear, perhaps, or the raw edge of survival. She was in her 30s, with hair the color of autumn leaves tangled from the wind, and a faint tremor in her hands that spoke of days without rest. "Just trying to get to Billings," she murmured, swaying slightly. Elias saw the gash on her forehead then, a nasty slice from what looked like a fall, hastily covered with a strip of cloth torn from her shirt. Blood seeped through, dark and insistent. "Can't leave you out here," he said, more to himself than to her. He helped her onto Thunder's back, her weight light against his arm, and led the horse toward the ranch house. The ride was silent save for the creak of leather and the distant howl of coyotes. Inside, the kitchen glowed warm from the stove's embers, a far cry from the cold emptiness Elias had grown accustomed to. His daughter, Sophie, 10 years old with Clara's freckles and a wisdom beyond her years, peered from the hallway. "Papa? Who's that?" "Someone needs our fire tonight," Elias replied, easing Lena into a chair. Sophie nodded, her small face serious, and fetched the first aid kit without a word. As Elias cleaned the wound, peeling back the makeshift bandage, Lena winced and whispered, Don't take it off. "It's fine." "Really?" He paused, his fingers hovering. The cloth wasn't just hiding the cut, beneath it lay a lattice of scars, old and faded, snaking across her temple like lightning strikes. They weren't from this accident, they told a story of something far more brutal, perhaps a life of hidden battles in the shadows of the city. Elias's chest tightened. He'd seen scars before, his own hands bore the marks of branding irons and barbed wire, but these felt different, like whispers of a pain he couldn't fathom. "Has to come off to clean it proper," he said gently, though his voice cracked with an old ache. "Won't hurt more than it already does." Lena's eyes met his, fierce and vulnerable. "You don't understand. People see these, and they look away. Or worse, they stare like I'm broken." Her words hung in the air, heavy as the storm clouds gathering outside. Sophie, kneeling nearby with a basin of water, reached out and touched Lena's hand. "Papa's got scars too," she said softly. "From when the bull got him last spring. He says they make us strong, like the mountains." Elias swallowed hard, the memory of that day flashing, the bull's horns grazing his side, Clara's voice in his head urging him to fight. He'd survived, but the ranch hadn't. Droughts and debts had chipped away at it, leaving him one bad season from foreclosure. Lately, he'd taken to the bottle after Sophie slept, drowning the grief in whiskey that burned like regret. Tonight, with this stranger in his home, the pull was stronger. He finished bandaging Lena's head, his hands steady despite the tremor in his soul, and poured her a cup of coffee. "Stay the night. Roads are no place for ghosts in the dark." As Sophie chattered about the ranch's glory days, tales of rodeos and wild colts, Elias stepped onto the porch, the cool air slapping his face. The stars were out, indifferent witnesses to his unraveling. He pulled a flask from his coat, the metal warm from his pocket, and took a long pull. The burn spread, loosening the knots in his chest, but it also stirred something wilder, a loss of control he'd fought for years. Clara's ring, still on his finger after all this time, caught the moonlight. He'd promised himself tonight he'd take it off, start fresh, sell the ranch and move Sophie to the city where life was easier. But Lena's words echoed, "Don't take it off." Why did they twist in him like a spur? Inside, laughter broke the silence, Sophie's giggle mingling with Lena's surprised chuckle. Elias froze, flask halfway to his lips. It was the first real sound of joy in this house since Clara. He capped the flask, shoving it away, and leaned against the rail. The wind carried the scent of rain, promising change. But deep down, he knew the storm wasn't in the sky, it was in him, raging toward a breaking point. The next morning dawned crisp, the kind of blue that made Montana feel eternal. Lena woke to the smell of bacon frying, Sophie at the stove under Elias's watchful eye. "You snore like Papa's old tractor," Sophie teased, sliding a plate her way. Lena smiled, the scars on her face less shadowed in the daylight. Over breakfast, she shared fragments of her story, not all, but enough. She'd fled an abusive home in Chicago, piecing together a life as a freelance writer, chasing stories of resilience for magazines that paid in promises. The scars? A car accident years ago, but the real wounds were the judgments that followed, the doors slammed on a face that didn't fit the pretty mold. Elias listened, his fork paused mid-air. He'd judged men in saloons by their grips, women by their silences, but never like this. "World's full of fools," he muttered. "They see skin, not soul." Sophie beamed, as if her father had hung the moon. But as they cleared the table, a truck rumbled up the drive, the bank man, Mr. Hargrove, clipboard in hand. Elias's stomach knotted. The foreclosure notice had come weeks ago, but today was the deadline to pay or pack. Hargrove, a slick city type with a tie too tight for ranch dust, eyed Lena curiously. "Mr. Thorne, time's up. Ranch goes to auction next week unless..." His gaze flicked to the ring on Elias's finger. "Unless you're ready to let go of the past. Sell the land, start over. It's just a place, not a person." Elias's jaw clenched, the flask's ghost whispering temptations. Lose control, snap at the man, drown it all later. But Lena stepped forward, her voice steady. "This isn't just a place. It's roots. Lives." Hargrove scoffed, but Sophie tugged at his sleeve. "Please, mister. Papa's trying." The air thickened, Elias's pulse thundering like hooves. He wanted to roar, to shove the man off his porch, but instead, he saw Clara in Sophie's eyes, pleading for mercy he rarely gave himself. "Give me one more month," he said, voice low. "I'll make it right." Hargrove hesitated, then nodded curtly, tires kicking gravel as he left. In the silence, Lena turned to him. "You didn't lose it. Not today." Elias met her gaze, the ring heavy on his hand. For the first time, keeping it felt like keeping her, not as a chain, but as a compass. Weeks blurred into a frantic rhythm on the ranch, the air thick with the scent of fresh-turned earth and the distant rumble of gathering clouds. Elias threw himself into the work, mending fences at dawn, negotiating with buyers for hay at noon, teaching Sophie to rope under the relentless sun. Lena stayed on, her presence a quiet anchor. She'd meant to leave after a day, but the wound needed watching, and something unspoken kept her, the way Elias's hands moved with a gentleness belying his gruff exterior, or how Sophie's stories wove them all into a fragile family. One evening, as thunder rolled in from the west, they gathered in the barn. Lightning forked the sky, illuminating stacks of hay bales like golden monuments. Lena helped Elias secure the horses, her laughter light when thunder nuzzled her pocket for an apple. "You're good with them," Elias said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Animals see truth." She shrugged, but her eyes held a flicker of old pain. "Grew up around strays. You learn to listen when no one else does. They worked in companionable silence until Sophie called from the loft, her voice laced with excitement. "Papa! Look what I found." She dangled a faded photograph, edges curled from time, Clara and Elias on their wedding day, young and fierce, the ranch sprawling behind them like a promise. Elias took it, his thumb tracing Clara's smile. The ring on his finger gleamed, a talisman against the ache. "She'd have liked you, Lena. Said the same thing, don't take it off." The day I wanted to quit after the first drought, she held my hand and whispered it about the ring. Meant don't give up on us. His voice broke, the storm outside mirroring the one brewing within. The debts loomed larger now, the auction date circled in red on the calendar. He'd hidden the flask, but temptation gnawed, urging him to shatter it all in a haze of fury. Lena touched his arm, her scars brushing his skin like a secret shared. "And you? What do you say to yourself?" The question hung, raw and unyielding. Elias pulled away, storming to the barn door. Rain lashed the tin roof, a torrent that matched his rising tide. "I say I'm done," he growled, the words tasting like ash. "Done fighting for ghosts. The ranch, the ring, it's all chains." He yanked at the band, metal biting flesh, but it stuck, slick with sweat and memory. Sophie clattered down the ladder, eyes wide. "Papa, no." But Elias was lost, the control slipping like reins from bloodied hands. He hurled the photo to the ground, glass from its frame shattering like his resolve. Thunder reared in her stall, sensing the chaos, and in a blind surge, Elias lunged to calm her, only to slip on the wet hay, crashing hard against the stall gate. Pain exploded in his side, ribs cracking like dry timber, and the world tilted into darkness. When he came to, Lena cradled his head, rain soaking them both as she pressed a cloth to his temple. "Elias, stay with me. Don't take it off." Her voice trembled, but her hands were sure, echoing his own from that first night. The ring, still on, defiant, glinted through the downpour. Sophie sobbed nearby, clutching the torn photo. "Papa, you can't leave us too." The words pierced deeper than any wound. Elias gasped, vision blurring, but in that haze, realization dawned like the storm's first light. He'd lost control not to the ranch or the debts, but to the fear of loving again, of opening the scars Clara left, of letting kindness seep through the cracks. Lena wasn't a stranger anymore, she was a mirror, showing him the selflessness he'd buried. With effort, he gripped her hand. "Help me up. We fix this. Together." The days that followed were a testament to quiet miracles. Lena, drawing on her writer's grit, penned a story for the local paper, not of loss, but of legacy. "The Heart of the High Plains," she titled it, weaving tales of the ranch's history, Elias's unyielding spirit, and the community it had cradled. Letters poured in, old friends offering loans, neighbors with tools and time. Sophie illustrated it with crayon drawings of wildflowers pushing through rock, symbols of resilience. But the true turn came on auction day. Elias stood before the crowd in Billings, Sophie at his side, Lena's hand in his, not as a crutch, but a partner. Hargrove called the bids, voices rising like a fever. 50,000. 60. Elias's heart pounded, the ring a steady weight. Then, a hush fell as an unexpected bidder stepped forward, old Mr. Wilkins, the grizzled farmer from across the valley, who'd feuded with Elias for years over water rights. 100,000, Wilkins boomed, but not to take it. To save it. "My boy's coming home from the service, needs roots like these." Murmurs rippled, it was no bid, but a gift, born of a late-night read of Lena's article. Wilkins clapped Elias's shoulder. "Your Clara helped my wife through her cancer. Time I paid it forward." Tears stung Elias's eyes as the gavel fell, not in loss, but salvation. The crowd erupted, hands clapping his back, stories shared like balm. In the chaos, Lena pulled him aside, her scars bared unashamed in the sunlight. You didn't lose control, she whispered. You found it, in us. He slipped the ring off then, not in defeat, but offering, sliding it onto her finger as a question, her nod the answer that rewrote his stars. Months later, the ranch bloomed anew, fences mended, fields green with promise. Sophie chased fireflies with neighborhood kids, her laughter the ranch's true heartbeat. Elias and Lena walked the plains at dusk, hands entwined, scars and all. We carry the broken pieces, he said one night, stars wheeling overhead, but together, they make something whole. And in that vast Montana sky, where winds still whispered old stories, a new one took root, that kindness isn't a fleeting spark, but a fire kindled in the dark. It asks nothing but gives everything, reminding us that even when control slips, humanity's gentle hand can steady the fall, turning loss into a legacy of light. For in the end, it's not the land we hold, but the hearts we mend, that echo forever across the open plain.